What's up, 444? This is the DFS MVP podcast for week 17. I am your host, Neil Orfield. I'm here with Davis Maddock and Pat Corraine as usual. We're going to be going game by game through the week 17 main slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. There's one extra game on FanDuel that we'll talk about as well. Before we get into the week 17 slate, though, guys, this is Best Ball Finals week. And you were two of the guys that I listened to the most throughout the offseason, listening to Best Ball podcasts. I, of course, used Pat's legendary upside rankings for Best Ball. So, of course, I'm closely aligned with a lot of the same sweats throughout the year that Pat has. And I think Davis, a lot of similar players also. But now everybody's diverging. Like, we only have a few teams remaining. Everybody has like their teams, the players they care about. So I'm curious, how are things going for you guys so far? What do you have? What are you sweating this week?
Pretty honestly going very well for me thus far. Have a Lamar team, have is the Lamar Andrews team, have a Kelsey team. Didn't have JSN or DJ Moore or Zach Charbonnet or any of those guys on my teams, and James Conner is going to play on what I think is probably my best team that's in the 100K to first puppy. So basically it can all be forgiven. Basically it can all like Worthy not scoring points until the fantasy playoffs, Mahomes sucking. It can just kind of all be forgiven if the next 72 hours go my way, which is really all you can ask for, I think.
That's what they say, right? It only takes one.
It only takes one.
Pat knows.
It's very true. Less well for me. One of the teams I got through has Jalen Hurts, and the other quarterback is Caleb Williams, and I stacked them up. So that's that's not going to go great.
That really killed me for some reason.
The other team is doing far better. That one's kind of fun. It's got May. It's got Daniels. It's got a Dolphins stack with Tua, Tyreek, Achane, Jonnu, and so it also got Kittle, some decent wide receivers on it. Devontae, big part of why I got there. I got Terry and Daniel stacked up, so that one could be fun. With another Connor, the team I need him to go, and Bucky. So this team's actually like pretty fun. It's in like the mini schnauzer too, so not a high stakes one, but that one is the one I'll be kind of pulling for the most, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that sounds Bucky. I've got Bucky on one team and Rachaad White on the other. Is Rachaad White just toast? Like the fumble, like do we think he's just not going to get any carries this week because of the late game fumble?
So that's what Dave Canales has basically said.
Oh, really? I missed that.
He's been tilting publicly about Rachaad White. But the thing is Bucky is 184 pounds and not a particularly good pass blocker. So like it's a real Roschon Johnson situation where like you might hate him, but he's Rachaad White's 225 pounds and like a totally fine pass catcher. So you just are gonna need him out there sometimes. Yeah.
All right. I'm torn because my better team is the one that has Bucky Irving on it. It's the Mini Schnauzer 4. I'm in the Mini Schnauzer 4 and the Pugbutt Superflex are the two teams I got in. I actually had several teams that I really liked last week that I was like, this team could be a contender in the finals, and all those teams got knocked out. So I'm just
that was kind of how it went for me.
Yeah, it was a brutal week. Although one of them was like I had Nico Collins, so that really wouldn't have done anything for me anyway. He was one player that I was like, oh man, if I can get Nico Collins through, and then he sucked anyway, so didn't really matter. But my Pugbutt Superflex team, that there's only 62 teams in the final, so I'm like, and it's 20,000 first instead of 10,000. So that's the one I'm like, okay, I've got a real chance here just because of the size of the pool, and that's the much worse team that just like I'm relying on Rachaad White. I thought up until 20 minutes ago that maybe Kamani Vidal would be my savior, and now we learn J.K. Dobbins is going to play, so that goes away. So just kind of brutal from that standpoint. I told you before the show that basically everything that has happened is tilting me. Like literally every piece of news is like, oh god, that hurts my team. Anthony Richardson being out for like a moment, I thought, oh, this was probably good for my Superflex league. Like probably people have Anthony Richardson. Turns out there's way more teams with Joe Flacco than Anthony Richardson. Yeah, so that hurts me. And of course, Josh Downs, a big part of my teams last week. He was on several of my teams. All those teams got knocked out. Now anybody who has him, like good news for any Josh Downs owners. But the one piece of news that I really needed was Terry McLaurin is no longer on the injury report. We just learned before the show, and he's actually the one player I think that's on both of my finals teams. So that's good news, at least. At least have that going for me. Also, sort of ironically, I sucked in everything Superflex this year. Like my advance rate was horrible, and that's one of the finals I made. So
were you not a Bo Nix guy?
I actually was a big Bo Nix guy, but I was also a draft for quarterbacks and spent a lot of draft capital on them guy. And I think that's something
I probably didn't have to this year because the late round guys smash, like Darnold smash, Baker smash, Nick smash, Daniel smash. And the mid-range quarterbacks were actually terrible. Like, could you have had a worse strategy than taking Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and Superflex? Yeah. Like you would have just gotten killed.
And I did that. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. Yeah. But ultimately, like yesterday, the 6-3 snooze fest, as Charles notes, was I did not have many players in that game. However, but then I look at so I'm not going through every lineup. I just went to Diablo's ranking of like here's the ownership in Best Ball Mania. Like, this is probably like a good indication of who made it to the finals. Actually, not that many players. Like even JSN was only like 11 or 12% owned. I was kind of surprised at how little that game like was represented.
He just has not spiked in half PPR. JSN. He's been like very fine, but like the game you would think of like, oh my god, dude, I had JSN on DraftKings and he smashed, and then you look at his underdog points and you're like, he got 14 points. You know, you're like, great,
good point,
good job, buddy. like Xavier Worthy, I think other than the one JSN Super Smash game, Worthy's 3 best games would be better than JSN's like 2 through 5 games, just because of touchdowns.
No, you're right. That's totally why he's not more represented. And now everybody has Brian Thomas. That's kind of did you guys have Brian Thomas?
I have Brian Thomas. Yeah,
I've been Brian Thomas on one.
Yeah, I also have him on one, I believe. All right. Any other thoughts on the games that have happened so far? Any other notes, or should we move on? Talk about this 9-gamer.
Chiefs are back, man. Hope you packed your bags in playoff best ball because they're winning the AFC, man.
Oh no, do we get a Chiefs down again? Just in time for another best ball tournament. Davis is back on the Chiefs.
This is how I get even. I was taking Worthy at wide receiver 28, man. If you can't, he's wide receiver 11 in playoff best ball now.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. You're not wrong about it. I was really annoyed for a minute there when both the Chiefs and the Lions seemed like they were fumbling away the bye, because I built all of my teams early on the assumption that the Chiefs and the Lions would have the bye. Now I'm feeling better about it. I think it's probably going to be Chiefs.
The Chiefs do have the bye.
The Chiefs
Chiefs already do, but the Lions are like 75%.
I don't know, man. The Vikings, dude.
That's
and Neil, you're a Vikings fan.
I know.
So the pessimism is built into you. You're like, they're gonna fumble it somehow.
I just assume the Vikings. I mean, they're gonna lose. I think the Vikings are gonna lose to the Packers this week. And it's a home game. That is totally my Minnesota pessimism. Like literally every holiday event that I've done has been people talking about how the Vikings are gonna lose to the Packers. That's how it always goes. Yep. They should win. Yep. They're gonna lose at home to the Packers. So it is kind of built into us. It would be super fun.
I hope your pessimism is correct, because the Vikings for like the last 3 weeks have been my backdoor team of like, okay, I have all these Chiefs, so I'm just going to do Darnold, Addison, Hawkinson.
No, Me too.
And so it's like, if they do get the bye, I'm looking at like up to probably 10% of my teams, like literally, like some of them not even being able to field a single player in the wild card round. Not good.
It would be funny. The teams that you build with Detroit, though.
Yes.
Like Detroit Vikings stuff is actually pretty strong, because those are the teams now that are going to have it. So
100%.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. But how many times have you taken Josh Allen with the first or second pick, and then you're using the sidekick? The sidekick tells you take Justin Jefferson, Josh Jacobs, then you have that team over and over.
Yeah, I was going to say I probably have 50 iterations of those exact players.
Yeah, same. Yeah. We all do. Yeah. We all do. And it's
on DraftKings, really especially. You got to get through on DraftKings. So we actually changed things up a little bit on Sidekick to make it more advance rate focused for DraftKings. It's 1 out of 6 over there.
Yeah, right.
So,
it's tougher.
And people draft more to advance. So it's like you're dealing with like a more advanced thirsty ADP and in competition. So it's but I have a lot of Jefferson as an advance rate piece, so I'm with you guys. I'm rooting for the Lions.
Yeah. Have you done any, before we move on, have you done any pods this week on Legendary Upside on the playoff best ball?
I'm traveling.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm traveling this week, so I haven't done any. We're gonna hit next week really, really hard on playoff best ball stuff, especially later in the week once I'm back
If
home.
you're curious about what the sidekick says, I did a video on Monday with
Nice.
the sidekick. I meant to do one yesterday and just ran out of time, but yeah, I'll probably have 4 or 5 videos up next week with sidekick stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I have not done any playoff best ball stuff. I've thought about doing some, and I would of course use the sidekick if I do a video also, but haven't had time yet. We'll see. Hopefully, eventually. Anyway, all right, let's get to it. Let's talk about this 9-game slate. I don't believe my article is up on 4for4 yet, so you cannot follow along. I'm just refreshing to double check. Yeah, it's not up yet, so I'll go in the order that I wrote the article, and if it ever does come out, then we'll be ready to go. The first game of the slate that I have is the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Titans have an implied team total of 19. That's tied for 26 out of 32 teams this week. Jaguars implied team total of 20.5. That's tied for 20th out of 32 teams this week. Davis, I'll send it to you first. Do you have any interest in Jaguars or Titans players this week?
Yeah, I do, particularly Tajay Spears for the Tennessee Titans. If we finally get Tony Pollard not playing despite having not practiced. I mean, this Tony Pollard thing is so bizarre where he like literally never practices, is clearly banged up, like clearly comes into these games, gets like re-injured, and then
you can see him on the sideline. He's kind of like wincing and like, testing his foot out. He's not healthy.
So it's like and maybe he's got contract incentives. I don't know the specifics. And then Brian Thomas Jr. And I am not playing Brenton Strange this week. He's up to $4,000 on DraftKings and got benched last week for fumbling. No, I think he'll probably be the starting 10 in this week, and maybe he's a really good flop lag play. But I just think at 4,000, like I'd rather get the extra $500 like Hawkinson. And then I'm mostly selling Chig Okonkwo chalk. Like, I just fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. Like, we have seen the Chig explosion before, right? Like, we've seen like, oh, it's finally happening. And then that spells a Josh Wiley touchdown the next week, I think is kind of the Chig Okonkwo experience.
Did you see the coach speak on that this week? It was like, why is Chig getting the ball so much? And the coach is kind of like, sounded to me like it was sort of happenstance. Like, it's just kind of the way the game flow is going. Like, they're just allowing like the tight end often gets lost. Like, it did not sound like we're targeting Chig Okonkwo. It was more like
he hates Chig. In the preseason, he was like, I remember a Coach Pick Index thing of him being like, yeah, our tight end room really needs some work. We're kind of excited about Josh, but like no one can really block or get open or do anything. Like this coaching staff does not like Chig.
Yeah, seems that way. All right, so BTJ not buying Bretton Strange, playing not buying Chig, so you're not really in on either of the tight ends. Pat, do you have any other players you want to throw in there?
I like the Brian Thomas play. Also, not that into Chig. I like Ridley okay here, 5,500 kind of medium chalk piece. But it's the Jacksonville defense. They stink. And Rudolph, I noted that Rudolph had 3 interceptions last week. Obviously, a lot less efficient game than he had against the Bengals, but his EPA per play would have been last week with 3 interceptions. His EPA per play would have been Will Levis's second highest of the season.
Buddy.
So we are getting, the better quarterback here again. And I think that's good. Like potentially really good for Calvin Ridley. Not a guy I've really been excited to play at any point this whole year, but I do think definitely in strong consideration at 5,500 here.
Okay. I think I maybe stopped listening or I got distracted a little bit, Davis. You were talking about the Tony Pollard stuff. Do you have any interest in Tajay Spears potentially?
Not if Pollard is active, because it just it's just too easy, particularly because this is gonna be a slop game. I would be surprised if this is like they're really trading blows, Mac Jones and Mason. I mean, like there'll probably be one long touchdown in this game where defenders like Benny Hill style run into each other or whatever. But I don't see this game being like 65 total points or whatever. And if Pollard even gets 8 rushes here, one of them coming inside the 8-yard line, then Spears like just projects like shit. And there actually are pretty good running back plays. I mean, it's just been this story all year. Like running back is just strong. So it's just thinner, you know. If Tajay Spears was eligible at wide receiver somehow, sure.
Yeah.
You're on the same page. I'm like a little bit torn about it. Pat, do you have thoughts?
I think Pollard plays, and I think he gets 8 touches, 10 touches, and yeah, I think that's how they've been doing it.
Yep.
So I think that's probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah, I mean, Spears has been good the past 2 weeks, but it has been kind of on low volume, so it does feel like it's not repeatable. I guess
touchdowns and receiving,
like randomly scored 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel very repeatable to me. But I mean, if Pollard was out, then I would change my tune.
I think the only reason that I still like him, kind of like thinking about it, is the matchup. Just like the Jaguars, I don't know, anybody can beat the Jaguars, so it sort of feels like if he's going to get the PPR and then he has a great matchup, it seems more likely he can break one off. But yeah, I hear you. It's maybe a little bit of a thin play unless Pollard is out, which I think Pollard seems like he missed one more day of practice this week than last week. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
We have a comment noting that he wasn't at practice, but he hasn't been at practice for like weeks now. Like he doesn't practice.
He like literally has not practiced in 6 weeks. I looked at his Roto World page the other day. He has not gotten a full practice in like since the sun started going down early.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So maybe we don't need to play him. And a couple people noting in chat that Tony Pollard has incentives, like he needs like 2 more touchdowns and or 80 yards for like potentially, I think people were saying in my Discord like $450,000 potentially if he hits both of those. So Pollard has
a really weird contract. He has it written in there. He doesn't have to practice once daylight savings time ends.
Yeah. So that's great. But yeah, so Pollard incentivized to play. He eats into Spears just enough, I guess. Fair enough. All right. Carolina Panthers at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pat, you're going to get a fun one to talk about here.
Yeah, this is the game of the week.
Panthers have an implied team total of 20. That's tied for 23rd on the week. Buccaneers have an implied team total of 28.5. That is the top implied team total of the week. Pat, I assume you're going to like somebody from this game. Who do you like from the Panthers or the Bucs?
I mean, there's lots of pieces to like here. The Bucs are, an interesting team where, like, if you put them in a situation where they need to pass, they'll pass. But especially since Bucky Irving has emerged, we've seen them go run heavy at times, kind of lean into, positive game script, lean on the run game in those types of environments. I compared them to the Chargers in the walkthrough. Is a team where, like, they're not run heavy, but especially with the Chargers, like since their week 5 bye, they're not run heavy, but they're also not like deeply committed to the pass. Like if you put them in a spot where they can win by running the ball, they're kind of happy to do so. This is one of those spots, I think, where, and kind of looking at the implied team totals in the line, we should have the Buccaneers in position to control the game, which makes Bucky Irving just a super strong play. He's been so good this year, so efficient as a runner. He obviously is not going to get like a ton of receiving stuff. I still think we'll see Rachaad White there, but that probably doesn't matter that much here. So even as a chalky play this week, and potentially very chalky play, I still think he's a good play. Then Mike Evans is one of the best plays of the week, I think, where you have him. I mean, I think he's got some incentives people were mentioning, but what is more of an incentive than this dude entered the league in 2014 and has had 1,000 yards every single season of his career. He needs 182, I believe, now to get there. Like that's going to be on their minds. Like they're not going to forget that this dude has 1,000-yard streak, that he doesn't need that many yards to keep. And he's going against
Baker
really
has memorized how many yards per game he needs.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to go to Evans here. He's in a great matchup. I think you could play Evans and Bucky together. So yeah, I think and honestly, like going through this slate, it's not a lot of fun stuff. This could be a pretty low scoring slate.
8 games. There's 3 games with a total over 40 on an 8-game slate.
Yeah.
So the Bucks feel like fantasy goodness on a bad slate to me. So yeah, Bucky and Evans are awesome plays. I think.
Davis.
So I think the key thing to note is basically you got to think about how you are going to play Baker, Evans, McMillan, Bucky, whoever. And one thing, I always run sims before I start and do my stuff and everything. The single highest sim ROI lineup I found anywhere, I've never seen a number this high, 521% sim ROI.
Whoa.
And it's early and like guys are going to be out. Like that's just directionally accurate. It's not real. But Baker, Bucky, Evans, McMillan, all of them.
Wow.
Because if you think about, it's a gross slate, probably not going to be that many teams that score, especially the contests I play. Like I don't play the Millie Maker. I don't play the Mini Max, like these like true like lottery size fields. So it's like, I don't know, can I get 190 point lineup? If Baker gets the bonus and throws 2 touchdowns, 1 to Evans, 1 to McMillan, Bucky gets the rushing bonus and scores 1, so he gets like 27. I mean, you're kind of looking at like, that's like an 80th percentile outcome for the Buccaneers, not like a 99th percentile. They score 35 points as a team. It's like a good game, but not like a historic game. But just in the context of the slate, that might be really all that you need. And Cade Otton is probably not going to play. Sterling Shepard is
he's already ruled out. I think they both are
so
ruled
just
out.
like crazy. I mean, I think you could even include Payne Durham, honestly.
I think you maybe should include Payne Durham.
Yeah.
He had a really good role last week. A really good role. I think he had 88% route participation. He actually got targeted.
He was just Cade Otton.
7 targets last week. Payne Durham.
You know who he kind of is? It's the Brenton Strange play, but back at the price we want.
Yeah, exactly. And on the Carolina side, I mean, I think Thielen looks good. I think Hubbard looks good. Leggett, I like a little bit less because he's like going to be playing banged up. He has this groin injury that he's been listed with for like 6 weeks, and he couldn't play last week and is going to play this week. But like theoretically, if Thielen is going to be 25% owned, because you also have to think in an 8-game slate, ownership is going to get like condensed because there are just fewer options. So if Thielen is going to be like the most owned 5K-ish wide receiver, then Leggett is like way better.
Yeah.
If Leggett misses, I think Coker's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried about the route participation for Leggett and Coker if Leggett plays because Moore's still there. And so I think you could see like them rotate all 3 guys a little bit. But if Leggett's out, and we get Coker. Coker's been good at 4,300. I think he's a pretty strong play too.
We got a question that I think this is a good one. In your the top sim ROI, you didn't have anybody from Carolina?
No, the reason why stuff is it's wonky right now and why the sim ROIs is so hard is because the Dontavian Wicks projected ownership is not updated. So it thinks that Dontavian Wicks, who projects for like 12 or whatever, is like unowned, but when he's actually going to be chalk. So that sim ROI stuff looks weird right now, but still, it's still very high directionally with the Buccaneers.
Just to clarify, does Dontavian Wicks like actually project for 12, or did you give him like an 8-point projection boost to get there?
Dontavian Wicks right now in my sheet projects for 11.18.
Are you assuming that Christian Watson is out?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. He is not practiced all week, and it's Christian Watson. So I'm pretty sure he's not playing.
Yeah. I'll have to update my Dontavian Wicks because as when I was writing my article, Christian Watson was still seeming to be
still in the projections.
Yeah,
so LaFleur is like he obviously learned from Shanahan. He just like lies. He's like, it's not that bad. It's just a bruise.
Right.
Sure. Totally.
All right, so we're playing all of the Buccaneers. I gotta know, are either of you relying on Mike Evans in best ball this week? Because I was really hoping and praying that he would not play this week. Like that was my one out for Mike Evans not putting up 200 yards this week.
No, I don't have him on. I don't have him on any of these teams, and it's feeling pretty thin. Here's a good question: would you play Chuba in these lineups? Like for Buccaneers, are you playing Chuba?
I mean, I'd be happy to have him. Like I won't force it, but absolutely would love to have Chuba in those.
Okay.
I think I'm open to it. I mean, he's not my favorite play, given that he will be somewhat owned, and I think it's an okay setup, not an amazing setup for him. I think like you can have the game go the way you want in a couple different ways for the Bucs. Like you have all those Bucs pieces, like you're sort of you can kind of like flow with whatever the game script is and still get there pretty easily. You don't like need Chuba to get going, and one of those scripts could be like pretty pass heavy by the Panthers, which wouldn't be ideal for him. So at 7,000, I'm not opposed to it, but it's not something I'd be prioritizing at all.
Classic Shady about to take down a best ball. He was mad that he only got third last year, so now Shady's going to take down a best ball tournament with Mike Evans.
He's in the 555, man.
Is he?
Great.
Yeah,
he's live. Yeah.
Who needs another Millie Maker? Clearly, Shady needs one more.
It's been a couple weeks since the guys.
Yeah, that's right. Any interest in Bryce Young this week?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, theoretically, yes. I have a feeling Bryce could end up being the like fourth most owned quarterback of the slate. He's been running a little bit.
Yeah.
Everyone's touting him. Darnold Jefferson is like really expensive, so it's a little bit harder to get there. I think like let's say Richardson gets ruled out.
Mm-hmm.
How owned can Bryce Young get? I think he can get pretty owned.
I feel like Richardson
like 5%. Go ahead. Sorry. No.
I was going to say like maybe ownership goes more toward Joe Flacco in that case, though. Like maybe Joe Flacco becomes kind of chalky.
It's just not as good of a game, though. It's not as it's the Giants. You know, it's like everyone.
Yeah, it's
like,
the Giants.
Yeah, it's just a shitty game.
True.
At 5%, I think he's a pretty good play, but at like 10%, it's like it's fine, and at like 15%, I'm like not even really looking at him. So, yeah, if ownership goes there, if he's steamy, I'm not going to
third in the NFL in scramble rate the last month. Bryce Young.
He's playing his game now. He's doing Bryce Young stuff.
He's playing his game.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see, I guess, where the ownership lands on Bryce Young. But yeah,
I'd probably lean no. What are you hoping for? What do you just are like? Okay, Bryce Young gets me 22. What does Thielen get? What does Jatavian Sanders get? What does Tommy Tremble get? You know, I don't know. Maybe it's fine.
I think it's fine. Like it's a short slate, so like you don't necessarily like it's possible none of these quarterbacks put up 30. So like maybe 22 from Bryce Young is great in that case, and
maybe
allows you to pay up for both Bucky Irving and Mike Evans. I don't know. It's playable, but I hear you. Not a huge priority. And we talked about it. I think it was before the show when I asked you guys what you thought about Rachaad White this week, and I wrote him up as like a in a 150 set, maybe include some Rachaad White just in case like he's the running back who scores 2 touchdowns. But do you think that the coaches just hate him so much right now that it's just not going to happen?
It's like even when they do hate him, Baker throws him the ball. So it's like they don't have any control over that, you know, especially with Shepard out. So it's like we saw remember when Evans was out and it was just like half the throws went to the running backs.
Right.
Could totally happen again.
Yeah. Ideal matchup. Everybody playing Bucky. So like some leverage there potentially.
Right. Some leverage.
I love Rachaad White in the draft games on Underdog. Like Bucky Irving is like a first round pick in the draft games and Rachaad White gets drafted like less than 40% of the time. And it's like, you were just not surprised if Rachaad White scores twice and Bucky scores 0 times.
Right.
You know, that just happens.
Yeah. So playable.
I like that call. Yeah. I don't know that I'll play him in DFS, but I like the draft games call a lot.
Yeah. Anything else from this game? It's an important game. So just want to, give you one more opportunity. Any other, I think we've talked about like every player in the game, but
the overstacking thing is the big thing to take away though.
Yeah. Good call.
I am a little surprised that Durham is not going to be like big chalk.
I am kind of too.
Looking at this,
Bowers,
I was like,
man, but Bowers projects like 6 points better than every other tight end on the whole slate. It's crazy.
True.
I mean, you could 2 tight ends could be. I mean, Bowers is a wide receiver, so I put him in the flex and
true.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let's move on to Indianapolis Colts at New York Giants. Colts have an implied team total of 24. I don't know if this has changed since Anthony Richardson became more questionable, I think. But that was
really
tied for 9th out of 32 teams. Giants implied team total of 16.5. That is 30th out of 32 teams. Davis, who, if anybody, do you have interested in on the Colts or the Giants?
Taylor. If Flacco does start, you definitely want to have Downs. Like, the value's just kind of thin this week, and Michael Pittman Jr., like, I don't know if it's the back injury or what, but he's not even like getting RPO scam targets anymore. It's just like,
he's never been that good.
He's never
Downs
been
is
that
really
good.
good, man.
Yeah, Downs.
That's the problem. Downs is better.
And when Mitchell is on the field, it's like the quarterbacks can't help themselves because they just see an open wide receiver and they don't have time to process that he's going to do something stupid once the ball gets there.
Won't throw it no matter what.
But so it's just like, what do you do as Joe Flacco? You're like, well, this guy's open. What am I going to do? Not throw it to him? Because he's going to, like, it's like, so Mitchell gets some of those targets that used to go to Pittman. So I think I would just jam Downs. And I'm not playing any Giant, even on an 8-game terrible slate. Like, Tracy scored a touchdown last week and got like 11. Like, Neighbors got 1 billion targets and got 13. You know, it's just like, it is so dire for the Giants.
Well, Neighbors and Tracy are banged up too.
Yeah, they're both banged up.
I think Tracy is off the injury report and Neighbors is still questionable, I believe, is the latest there.
Yeah, he's just got this groin that has plagued him like all season, Neighbors.
Pat, your take on the Colt situation. Do you agree? Just jam Downs if it is Flacco at quarterback. Would you play any Flacco? Sounds like Davis not that interested in Flacco.
What is Flacco?
4,900.
I still have Richardson in on my stuff. Yeah, 4,900. I think that's he's definitely in play. That cheap of a price. The problem is that Drew Lock has been the worst quarterback in the league this year.
Yeah.
If you look at like EPA, he's just been so bad. They don't have this running game they could lean on. And put up points that way. The people generally do run on the Colts, but the Giants have just been like really pass happy since they weren't worried about Daniel Jones getting hurt and them having to pay him next year. As soon as they went to the backups, they've been throwing the crap out of the ball, and it doesn't work. But they're pretty committed to it. It seems like so. I like the Colts defense isn't good, but they could be more than capable of shutting this down. We could be looking at turnover, sacks, a lot of dead drives. I did just stream the Seahawks and the Bears last night, so I am a little bit scarred by that game. Maybe I'm just envisioning that style of football again. But when you think about like the game environment here, I actually felt like this was a great game environment for Anthony Richardson to play because they had a 22% pass rate last week.
Yep.
22%. That's the lowest we've seen by any team all season. And with Richardson, it is pretty clear they were just going to run the crap out of the ball, and Jonathan Taylor was going to have a huge workload and potentially be kind of the guy you needed in best ball stuff with the week 16 and 17 combo, which I think is in play with Flacco, but a little bit like less of the clear cut, most likely scenario. But yeah, I mean, Taylor does stand out here, especially if Richardson goes because of how bad the Giants' defense is. They're not good against the run or the pass, and how unlikely they are to really push the Colts off of a run-heavy script. And then even if they do push them off the run-heavy script, the Colts are probably still going to run anyway. That's how you get to a 22% pass rate. You just refuse to pass. There's no game script that calls for 22% pass rate. You're going super, super low PROE stuff. So Taylor definitely stands out as a very strong play.
I wrote up all of Taylor, Flacco, Downs, and Pittman as targets under the assumption that Flacco is in. I don't know. You guys are scaring me off it a little bit. At least the Pittman part. I'm not actually that enthusiastic about Pittman. Probably should have put him as a MME play only anyway. But Downs. So we're all on the same page. Downs is going to look awesome if Flacco is at quarterback. Taylor looks pretty good, I think, regardless. I think Flacco would be in play just because it's a short, gross slate. Like, he's 4,900. We know Flacco can sling it. He hasn't been that good this year. He's only put up 15.5 fantasy points in starts.
The The concern I would have about Flacco is if you're playing him in fantasy, what you want is you literally want like 49 passing attempts.
Yeah.
And I
true.
don't know if that can happen here. You know?
Yeah. I think that's a good note. Downs, though, I mean, Downs has just been so good. And
Downs regardless, yes.
Yeah. He's been such a target earner. In first read target rate, he's in the 97th percentile, and he has a 29% targets per out run, which is 98th percentile. Also 97th percentile in open score. So it's like, it's all telling, he's a huge part of the game plan. He gets open, draws targets in addition to having them kind of schemed up for him. Just a really good receiver.
I wrote up in 4 games with Flacco as a starting quarterback. Josh Downs has 40 targets on just 69.6% route participation. So targeted a ton while he's out there. Michael Pittman has been in for 3 games with Flacco as a starter, just 16 targets. So yeah, the target's not really there for Pittman relative to Downs. Downs looks awesome. I think I have some interest in Malik Neighbors just because he's been targeted 57 times over his past 5 games. Like he's just volume. Yeah, the volume is still there. He still like fails pretty regularly with these quarterbacks being so bad. But he hit 2-3 weeks ago. He had a big game. I don't know. I think he's still he's 6,600. The price is okay. The volume is good enough that he's somebody that I will play some of.
If Neighbors misses, or even if he's just kind of banged up, do either you guys have interest in Wandale at 4,400?
I need him in our dynasty final in the auction league. I would 19 points from Wandale would hit like crazy. So I'll take it.
Wouldn't it be was it Darius Slayton that took
week
over
17 last year? Yes.
No. The when Malik Neighbors missed time earlier this year, was it Slayton that took over and like suddenly was targeted 12 times a game?
Yeah. Slayton will be in that kind of like faux Neighbors role, but Wandale saw 14 targets last week. So, he's going to – sorry, that's Neighbors. He saw 12 targets last week. They both had 7 receptions.
We should probably mention the guy who scored 40 fantasy points last week and is projected for, I believe, the most points of any skill position player this week. Nope, the 3rd most. Jonathan Taylor.
I did a whole thing on Taylor.
he did do a whole thing on Taylor.
Well, we should. I guess we should answer it this way.
He's been mentioned.
Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley. You could probably only play one. So in the context of what you're doing with actual lineups this week, and you definitely you really are not going to be able to play Taylor and Jefferson in the same lineup. How do you feel about him in that context?
Saquon for me, I think. Just the matchup with the Cowboys, a little bit too juicy. Trying to set records, no hurts. They're just going to just run it every time.
And the Eagles do actually need to win. Theoretically, if they lose out, which is obviously very unlikely, the Commanders can pass them for the division. But if they win this game, they can rest everyone next week.
Yeah, I like Saquon better as well. Another thing where it's like it's not lost on them what's happening. This is historic now. So
Eric Dickerson said, "I hope he doesn't break my record," which I really like that. I hate when these dudes are magnanimous. Like, no, you don't want this guy to break your record. Like, be a dick. Thank you.
Well, just be like, if he doesn't break it this week, it doesn't even count because he gets an extra game.
Yes,
right. That's how I would play it. That's how I would play it. It doesn't count. Extra games.
If you do it this week, I'll respect it. Otherwise, it's bullshit.
Like Barry Sanders.
Your move, Saquon.
Like Barry Sanders was like, "Oh, Ashton Jeanty, I respect you breaking my record in like 900 more games than Barry Sanders played." So like, don't do that.
How did you pull that off?
Yeah,
with 900 more games. Jeez.
Impressive. Crazy good. Davis, do you want to confirm or deny that you missed Pat talking about Jonathan Taylor because you were drafting at the time?
I did, because I enter these contests on Underdog that take forever to fill. Like the smaller ones, and like I forget that I'm in them, and then I get the notification that it started. But yes, I was playing a draft game.
100% been there. All right. Anything else on Colts or Giants?
Nope.
All right. So we'll go back to Pat. Las Vegas Raiders.
I did just want to cover. Do we mention that Flacco might play in this game and not Richardson?
That's funny. Good call out. Yeah. So do we want to play Flacco then if he does play? Okay,
we should talk about it. All right,
we're gonna move on to Las Vegas Raiders at New Orleans Saints. Raiders implied team total 19.5. That's 24th out of 32 teams. Saints implied team total 18. That is 29th out of 32 teams. Pat, who do we like on either of these teams, if anybody?
Bowers. I mean, he's the dude. The Saints are not good against the pass. They have a really bad pass rush. They're worse against the run, and so you could see a team coming in here and just like trying to establish it. But given like kind of how bad the Raiders backfield has gotten, and I think they're well aware that Bowers is their best weapon. And like O'Connell's kind of a statue, but he can get the ball out. So I think Bowers is a pretty strong play here. Kendry Miller, I have like a little bit of interest in at 5,500, but yeah, I mean, no one else really jumps out to me other than Bowers is like a very strong play.
Davis.
I'm a little bit more enthusiastic. I think this could like be the slop game this week, where in Aiden O'Connell's 3 starts where he started and finished, he's had either 300 yards or 2 touchdowns in all of them. Bowers is averaging like 11 and a half targets a game when AOC starts. It's like ridiculous. And actually, Kendry Miller, man, he had no shot last week. They were just total like in Lambeau. It's like 20 degrees. Your team sucks. Like everyone's out. But like, what does that matter against the Raiders? This is basically an intramural scrimmage, you know. But like, the stakes in this game literally could not be lower. There are.
Aiden O'Connell's going to show up with a bag of footballs. He's going to make sure he brought the balls.
They're wearing the mesh jerseys. Like one team has the red mesh jerseys, one team has the blue mesh jerseys. You know, like it's like, oh, we got to air the ball up before we start. Does anyone have water? I forgot my water bottle.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Yeah. So I think Kendry Miller, there's just like no reason he can't get like 17 rushes and 4 targets in this game. Like this game could easily end 6-3 or like 35-28. Like you could tell me either thing and I'm believing it exactly. Like it's just so hard to tell with these games when nothing matters. Like crazy stuff happens, and I mean it's all bad players, but like that also means the players on defense are bad too. Like these are just decimated teams. Like I think Max Crosby's not playing for the Raiders. Like, you know, it's just like backups of backups. So and Kendry's cheap. It's like kind of hard to find a $5,500 running back who might get 20 touches. And if you really want to be wackadoodle, I mean, Madison is the early down running back for the Raiders, and Abdullah is the passing down back. So sure, when they're getting spun, Abdullah will be in there. But Madison is going to get, you know, 19 of the least efficient rushes you've ever seen in your life this week, basically. So I'm kind of interested in that.
What about the other side of it? The Jordan Mims was the showdown hero this week.
It's just, I think that was just because they were getting pumped. I don't know. I don't know Pat's read on that, but I think
couldn't they get pumped again this week? Like, don't you think that's certainly possible?
I mean, they were 14.5 point dogs last week, and they're favored this week.
Fair.
So I think if it's bad for the Saints, it's like it's their own doing. Like it's because Rattler's just so bad.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't like. It's not like the Raiders are going to come. Most likely just like put it on them and they're like in garbage time. It's probably because they were like ineffective for 2 quarters. They get down that way.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I kind of like the optimism. I think O'Connell, like I wrote it up and was like, yeah, like the thing about it's I don't know if this is like karma or what, but it is kind of ironic because I spent all of last summer talking about how Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell were bad best ball picks because they weren't going to be playing in week 15, 16, and 17. And then they, got benched. But they played this week 15. they played this week 15 and cost me some advance rate, or was it 16? Whatever it was, they screwed me. The Brock Bowers,
It's so
Ritter
bad.
just completely tanking Bauer's value, and then JSN's value getting tanked by Howell. But O'Connell, I think, really he's like a huge improvement over Ritter, because he will keep the wheels on. Like, he's not amazing, but it's just some semi-competence. I think we can count on here. So yeah, I could see this game being kind of fun.
I know nobody wants to hear about my best ball bags, but I just have to say one of my final teams has Aiden O'Connell and Brock Bowers. I would love nothing more than this team. It's the Pugwet Superflex. I am shockingly in this 62-person final. I am not the only person with an Aiden O'Connell, Brock Bowers stack. I was like, holy shit, how am I not the only one?
Anything can happen in Superflex.
Yeah. So I'm begging for a Aiden O'Connell to Brock Bowers 200-yard, 2-touchdown explosion. Jacoby Myers, any 48 targets over the past 5 games for Jacoby Myers. No interest there.
I just absolutely refuse to do the fucking Jacoby Myers industrial complex. It's so annoying because you're like, oh, dude, I like he projects so good, and then you watch the game and every play goes to Bowers. It's just like, and you're not even mad at. Well,
Ritter's in, it's all Myers.
But then you're not even mad about it.
Only in the fourth. It was like the final drive. Like he had 0 points. There were 0 wide receiver receptions in the first half of that game. Remember that?
Yeah, dude. I just wanted to vent about Ritter some more.
That's fair.
Really
we can all vent about Ritter for a while. Juwan Johnson, the only other player that I wrote up is like, he looks plausible, like sort of playable. I don't know. It's gross.
Yeah, he's so theoretical, man. Like,
yeah.
Shouldn't have already happened. Like they've already lost their receivers over and over and over again. I mean, it's they had what? Cedric Wilson, Dante Pettis, and who was the other dude that ran a ton of rounds last week?
Mason Tipton, Bub Means.
Yeah, I think it was someone else. But like with this wide receiver room, I mean, and then Taysom's out. Kamara's out. Like, everybody's gone. Like, shouldn't you have stepped up? Kevin Austin Jr. is who I was thinking. He had 92% route participation last week. Like,
Olave might play this week. Are either of you guys interested in that? I am not.
I hadn't given any thought to it. Do you know what the price tag is?
I'm pulling it up right now because he's not in my projection sheet, so I don't have him. Let's guess. I'm gonna guess that Chris Olave is $5,700 DraftKings dollars. He's $5,200.
I think he'd be in play at that price.
Yeah, he's in play. Yeah, he is.
Could just get 12 targets or something. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. I hope he's out because I don't even want to think about it. But yeah, in play. Anything else from Raiders Saints? Okay. Davis, New York Jets at Buffalo Bills. Jets have an implied team total of 19. That's tied for 26 out of 32 teams. Bills implied team total 27.5. That is second out of 32 teams. Do you like anybody from either the Jets or the Bills?
Again, like, it's all very theoretical with the Jets. It's like, oh, can the Jets score some points? The Bills defense has not been that good. You can run on the Bills. Breece Hall's given up about 25 to 30% of the snaps to Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen's another week healthier. Maybe he takes some of the short yardage stuff. And then it's like, with the Bills, it's like, I don't know. I guess it's just James Cook for me. Like, how could you play Khalil Shakir or Dalton Kincaid or any of these guys when you're like, dude, this is the perfect Khalil Shakir spot. And then you look up and Reggie Gilliam has just scored. Quentin Morris. Reggie Gilliam is a different fullback. Quentin Morris is the Bills guy. It's just they're like the most annoying. And it's like, do I want to play $8,700 Josh Allen on a slate without any like real clear value when it's unlikely they're pushed? Garrett Wilson is $6,100 DraftKings dollars. I get that, and he complained last week. So squeaky wheel for G. The thing about Garrett Wilson complaining is Aaron Rodgers doesn't care, man. What does Aaron Rodgers care about Garrett Wilson complaining? He's never. He got 2 more games off with Garrett Wilson for the rest of his life. He does not care.
He just wants to.
I'm not sure the squeaky wheel applies with Rodgers. You just might get shipped out of town.
What if Devontae misses? Devontae seems like he's like legit questionable. At that point, 6,100.
I mean, I think I like him theoretically, but like, do I like him enough to click him over Jordan Addison? I don't know, really.
I'm just picturing Rodgers. I'm just picturing Rodgers is staring angrily. He's like pointing at where Wilson should have turned instead of the way he did turn. There's like 4 of those. He's got like 5 receptions for 45 yards. It's I don't know. With Adams in, I think it's more interesting for sure because the what I'd say about the Jets is that they have been willing to pass when pushed. And then Rodgers, he looked like it was just kind of over, and he's been much better since at his very lowest this year. Some of that's matchup related, but this is not a difficult matchup. So Adams, if healthy, would be my favorite play here. And then obviously, if Adams was out, that does help Wilson quite a bit. So yeah, it's like a little bit. I'm kind of betting on the mind meld, I think, when I take Adams. But if you're betting on targets consolidating plus passing volume because the Bills pushed them, then Wilson would be a pretty strong play with Adams out. I'm not really that interested in Allen because, like David said, it's hard to see them getting pushed. And this isn't the Bills of old where they're going to kind of create their own passing volume. They're still dictating the run generally when playing from ahead. I think those games where we saw Allen go nuclear were when they were like way behind, and then against the Lions when they were proactive against a really, really strong opponent and putting up points.
I do got one thing on that though. Josh Allen's MVP odds went from minus 1,000 to minus 150, minus 190-ish after Lamar smoked it on Christmas.
That is interesting.
Dude, the Buffalo Bills, they are the NFL's little brother. They can say they're not all they want. They are. Josh doesn't get to win the MVPs. Lamar gets to win the MVPs. They don't get to win the Super Bowl. Pat gets to win the Super Bowls. Like, they hate it. They every time something slightly goes bad for the Bills, you get a report. Oh, Josh Allen's been playing with a broken left hand, man. Yeah, broken. It's been really tough for him. The Bills fans are such. This is actually true. Bills fans are in such a bad spot mentally that they are mad that Travis Kelce's relationship with Taylor Swift gets more attention than Josh Allen's relationship with
oh my God,
what is her name?
Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah,
yes, who is also a musician or actress or something. She's famous.
I think she's both also.
Yes, Bills fans legitimately.
It doesn't matter. She's no Taylor Swift.
She's no Taylor Swift. Yes, like this is a real thing that really impacts them on it. I'm not even kidding. I think there's they would love for him to get 5 touchdowns this
now,
week.
is this just from doing pods with Jess Liam, or
this is not just
I saw you did a pod with Leone this week.
This is not just Liam. This is not just Leone. This is a real thing. It just is, and it just is what it is. They you the broken hand thing. Lamar beats the Steelers finally. Then the report comes out that night. Oh, Josh been playing with a broken hand, man. I think there's no way this stuff is coincidental. It's just my opinion.
All right, so over under 4.5 touchdowns for Josh Allen this week then.
I think you take the over minus 110. I mean, you just gotta shovel it in. I'm really
you don't play him in DFS.
I'm really not being facetious. I think that basically it's halftime. They're up 21-3. And they come out and they're like, all right, Josh, you get the full quarter no matter what happens. You scored twice, you get to keep playing. I really think so.
Then Davis, how do you not like him in DFS? If all of this,
that sounds like you just described the smash.
Yeah, he's just so expensive. Really, it's really that simple. He just is insane. That's such an $8,700 for a quarterback. He could get 30 and still not be optimal.
True.
I think he's 8,500.
Let's see.
It's still really expensive.
85, yeah.
He is $1,600 more expensive than every other quarterback on the slate.
Wow.
Yeah, he's expensive. Still, I mean, if he puts up 5 touchdowns, tough to overcome that. I hear you though. Yeah. I wanted to pull up the coach speak on Garrett Wilson. Not even says, didn't Coach Speak say they got to feed Garrett this week? They kind of did. So on the 23rd, interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich said, at the end of the day, we've got to find ways to get Garrett the ball more often. He's one of the best players on our team, if not one of the best players in this league, especially at his position. We've got to find ways to get him the ball for sure. We've got to keep manufacturing looks and touches and targets for him. You have to put him first in the progression as often as we can, and ultimately try and find ways to get him open to get the ball. If he weren't frustrated, I think that would bother me to an extent. I think he's just one of those ultimate competitors that wants the ball, not for selfish reasons, just from the standpoint that he knows he can help our team win if he does have the ball in his hands. Now, to the point that that both of you have made, with Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, none of that might matter. That this could be a negative ultimately that he's a squeaky wheel. But I think it's like worth noting, like the range of outcomes pretty wide.
Before 2 weeks ago, him and Adams were dead even in targets since Adams got there. And then it was the last 2 weeks where Adams just kind of ran away with it. But it shouldn't be surprising if, he's the squeaky wheel after an Adams explosion and then they work to get him involved. And it's actually him this week. So,
and the price down to 6,100.
6,100. Yeah. It's a good play.
Yeah. Especially if Adams is out. Like, I think he's in play regardless, but if Adams is out, I kind of think he'd be a smash at that point.
I agree.
All right. Anything else from the Jets and or the Bills? All right. Dallas Cowboys at Philadelphia Eagles. Cowboys have an implied team total of 16. That is the worst of the week. Eagles implied team total 23.5. That is tied for the 12th best of the week. No Jalen Hurts in this one. Pat, do you like anybody on? Well, we talked about Saquon a little bit already, but you can go into that more if you want to. Anybody else you like on the Eagles and or the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, Barkley is kind of the really, really strong play. I noted in the walkthrough that, we had the choice in summer drafts between Devon Achane and Saquon Barkley. Achane's running back 7 in PPR. He's been good. Achane's averaging 51 rush yards per game. Barkley's averaging 52 rush yards per game on 15-plus yard runs alone.
Gosh. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's
pretty good. Legendary upside. People are saying he might possess.
Yeah, he might have legendary upside after all.
Is he averaging 24 points per game?
He's at 22.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that freaking insane how much pass catching matters?
Yeah,
that he's
it
not
really
even.
Is.
He's not even beating Dalvin Cook's best season in a year where he is going to break the all-time rushing record. I mean, that is just unreal.
Loses some touchdowns to Hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think I was right. He didn't catch passes.
Should we do a victory lap of our Saquon Barkley fade?
Should we victory lap the fade? And he's only going to score 22 points. He's the smash here. AJ Brown also, I think, the projection and everything and really low owned, he kind of looks like a strong play to me, but I will say I'll fully admit Pickett is on my list of that quarterback class is basically just I can't stand that whole quarterback class, and I really have trouble with Pickett supporting a guy that I'm gonna pay $700-800 for. So
no, dude, Corain, this is I respect you. Ball. You couldn't be more wrong about this. For fantasy football.
Talk me into it.
For fantasy football, not for real football, not for winning games, but for an imaginary game where we want the ball to land in AJ Brown's hands, you would not close rather have Kenny Pickett than AJ Brown. AJ Brown saw Kenny Pickett warming up on the sidelines yesterday, and his eyes got big like saucers. He was like, I'm about to get the ball so many fucking times. He got, if you include DPIs, he got 18 targets last week.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I would note that that's a game they lost, and they're going to be very unlikely to lose to the Cowboys, even with Pickett.
This is a real wind horse situation. Why did they lose that game, Pat?
Yeah, true.
Pickett's inefficiency keeps him in it. Pickett's inefficiency is like, that's another reason. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw these terrible interceptions. He just scrambles. He just runs for 4 yards. Kenny Pickett is just like, here you go. Take it.
So
Ron Bland.
even in that game, they had a 54% pass rate. We haven't seen a 55% pass rate or higher from the Eagles since September. They're going. Yeah, I know. They're going against a huge run funnel, a terrible run defense. They're going to lean on Barkley, and like Pickett, he does suck. So I get, maybe the game speeds up because he actually lets the Cowboys in this game and it starts being competitive. There's definitely upside for Brown, but it still makes me nauseous. You did not. I got no less nauseous after your bull case. I do see the upside. I
was trying to find the Jacob Sanderson. Go ahead.
It's just all you need is like the Cowboys get one first half touchdown. Just one. Not they're trailing, but just like one. Rico Dowdle, 16-yard scamper, And I obviously probably Saquon just gets 28 rushes here and wraps up the rushing title or whatever. But like, man, $7,800 AJ Brown when I can expect his targets to be like 8 instead of like 6 with like ceiling for way more. Kenny Pickett, I think he only dropped back 26 times last week. He targeted Barkley once. He targeted Gainwell once. Then every other target was to AJ Brown or Devonta Smith. Every other one. Kenny Pickett knows you. Let me tell you this: AJ Brown, he was not wishing Jalen Hurts a speedy recovery, bro. He was saying, you take a week off, brother. You rest up. You rest up.
I've been looking for. I thought it was a Jacob Sanderson tweet about like Hurts's Brown's target share with Kenny Pickett last week was like 70-something% or 80, something ridiculous like that. I can't find the tweet, so it might not have been Jacob.
It was 60% if you don't include the DPIs, and even higher if you do.
Yeah. So I don't know. It also like they can feel less confident if they get up 17 points and they have Kenny Pickett instead of Jalen Hurts. You're not quite as confident that like you have this in the bag. So I kind of agree that like Pickett throwing the ball maybe not the worst thing for AJ Brown.
It makes sense. Davis, have fun enjoying. Have fun playing Philly Malik Neighbors. I'm gonna play the guy about to break the rushing title.
Philly Malik Neighbors is literally exactly it. Philly Malik Neighbors, 100%, but with Barkley.
Yeah. It's tough. It's not an easy play. I will say, like, I had a friend today lamenting having AJ Brown on his fantasy roster, and he was like thinking about sitting him for some like trash play, and I was thinking like that's a horrible idea. You want AJ Brown. Worse.
Yeah, no, he's like a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Like it's not. I'm not like a clear wide receiver 1, but yeah. It just makes it's 7,800 on like a week where, like Dave was saying, not a ton of value. I kind of want to correlate stuff. I don't know. It's just like a little bit. But maybe I'm just not seeing the 80% target share clearly enough.
Open your third eye, Pat. See that 80% target share.
It really could be an open your third eye situation. If Pickett just feeds them again.
How about the Cowboys? Any Rico Dowdle love? Jake Ferguson. Somebody's got to catch the ball, right, with CeeDee Lamb out, or at least get targeted with the ball.
I think you can get away with Rico. That's really about it. Like Jake Ferguson, all that stuff. I'm probably out.
I kind of like Jake Ferguson.
Route participation was not high last week. It was like in the 50s.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was weird.
I didn't look at last week specifically. Okay. 18 targets.
I think Rico's fine.
Okay. But no, you're not excited about Fergie. Fair enough.
Not really. Rush was really bad against the Eagles the first time.
So Devonta Smith getting the other targets. Any interest in Devonta Smith for either of you?
Not really. He's cheaper at least.
No. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna pass on Philly Wan'Dale Robinson.
Fair enough. All right. We've reached the point where I'm forgetting who goes next. I think it's Davis. Davis up first. Dolphins at Browns. Dolphins have an implied team total of 23. That is 16th out of 32 teams. Browns implied team total 16.5. That is 30th out of 32 teams. Davis, any interest in Dolphins or Browns players?
Yeah, A-Chain looks very good. We can do this 15th week in a row. Martingale with Tyreek Hill. Lowest his price has ever been. It only takes one. He's not getting the deep shots anymore. But the safety misses, takes the wrong angle, boom, 80-yard touchdown. We are still, since week 1, no receptions over 30 yards for Mr. Hill. The whole offense is boring, timing, worst offensive line in the NFL. A-Chain kind of bailed you out, honestly, with the 50-yard touchdown when the game was wrapped up last week. Their opponent is even more pathetic. Dorian Thompson-Robinson now has gotten over 100 pass attempts, worst NFL quarterback in recorded history in terms of yards per attempt, minimum 100 attempts. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, absolute miracle that they were able to do anything really last week against the Bengals to even be in the position to have a touchdown, because he was terrible. So no Brown for me. David Njoku ruled out. It's really probably just A-Chain for me. I like Tyreek all right in the draft games, but $6,900 on DraftKings, I don't know.
No Jonnu love?
I'd just rather play Bowers. He's getting expensive now.
He is. Pat, how about you?
Yeah, I think the setup for this game is just like what we expect from the Dolphins, but like even more. You know, like they're going against a Browns pass rush that's very good. They're not good in coverage. So some notes in the chat about they give up big plays, play a lot of man. But the thing with the Dolphins is like they are so clearly trying to get the ball out quickly and keep Tua healthy. Like that is the goal. Their offensive line absolutely stinks, as Davis said, and they just got to get the ball out quick. And that's why you've seen Jonnu have such a big explosion. That the first time that Jonnu like really popped off was week 11. That began a streak of 4 games where Tua had a time to throw of 2.4 seconds or faster. And that is like ridiculously fast. 2.5 seconds is like a quick throw. And so his average throw is like easily a quick throw. He's just like, it's extension of the run game stuff. It's shallow. It's yards after catch. It's Achane. It's Jonnu. It makes it harder for Tyreek to be involved in a way that's going to pay off an expensive wide receiver salary. It's not that he can't produce, but it's like it's going to be less downfield stuff, less kind of over the middle of the field, less deep targets. I think it just reinforces Jonnu's role. Although I do tend to agree that I would just rather go play Bowers. He is, he's not a bad play, but
bad weather too. Classic.
Yeah.
17 shitty Browns weather.
Yeah.
Which
I think
we all kind of predicted this offseason, right? We all knew this was coming.
Right.
Well, people are saying, famously it was supposed to be an El Nino year last year.
People are saying.
Achane is a pretty strong play, I think. I know he's going to be popular, but he's definitely someone I'm going to be considering. You get a floor with Achane, and then the Browns have not been good against the run. Teams have run against them all year. He's still really fast. He's been efficient as a receiver. So, the rushing efficiency has been pretty disappointing on the whole, but like maybe he's kind of more DeAndre Swift, but he actually catches. It's like what we wanted DeAndre Swift to be is what he ultimately turned into, as opposed to what we wanted him to be, which would have been, like a true, absolute superstar. But still, I mean, DeAndre Swift with a passing role in a good matchup is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is fairly interesting. Roth's weather report was brought up, so I'll just let you know. Roth is expecting some sort of rain is fairly likely. He says winds around 15 mile per hour sustained with gusts to 30 miles per hour. So that's pretty serious winds here. So probably not expecting much from the passing games, but obviously you can still get there with the running backs.
Does wind even impact the Dolphins passing game? Can wind
honestly,
impact?
maybe not.
Can wind impact a ball that travels 7 yards in the air?
We
Right.
did this, by the way, like 3-4 weeks ago when they had the Packers and the cold, and we heard you can't play the Dolphins to do bad in the cold. Not anymore because they throw it like 2 yards. So
Yeah.
like, it really doesn't matter. Like if you're playing, it would be another reason why Tyreek. Now, if Tyreek has no ownership, I think he'd be like an interesting large field play to me. He's not like as expensive as a player with his talent should be. But generally, I would play this through HM more specifically this week. But Jonnu, if he wasn't so expensive, would be a really strong play too. So it's just like the elements don't really bother me because I'm most likely to play it through the running back.
Yeah. Interesting question here. I did not realize that apparently Raheem Mostert is only 5,000 on FanDuel. So like because of the price tag, I didn't even write him up, so I didn't look at his stats from last week. I think the week prior he had sort of seen a little bit of an increase in usage. I don't know if that held last week, but maybe that's kind of interesting in a bad weather game. Like maybe they run it quite a bit, and he's only 5,000.
Feels like you don't play the 32-year-old in bad weather. It'd be more likely like Jalen Wright.
Maybe.
I don't know. The thing is on FanDuel, you lose so many points in projection when you waste a running back slot on a guy who sucks.
Good point. Yeah. It's a little bit tough. A little bit tough to play. Okay. I was going to look it up, but I don't think he's that involved. No, like Jerome Ford, any interest there? Like Jerome Ford checkdowns?
No.
I mean, they had Deontay Foreman fumble at the goal line, and so you know Ford is probably like maybe that won't matter this week, but I could see them leaning on Ford and not messing around so much with Foreman.
All right.
Very exciting.
Let's move on. Green Bay Packers at Minnesota Vikings. Packers have an applied team total of 25. That's tied for the 8th best of the week. Vikings implied team total of 23.5. That is tied for the 12th best of the week. Disrespectful that the Packers are favored in Minnesota against the Vikings who are leading them. But that is what we have here. Going back to Pat. Pat, do you like anybody on the Vikings or the Packers this week?
This feels like the other, if the Panthers Bucks game is the exciting game, this is kind of the other exciting game, I think, where
100%.
you haven't in the Packers, you have a team that it's been like very run heavy. And they, obviously they were really run heavy when they had Malik Willis, but they've been like almost as run heavy without Willis as with him, which has been frustrating because Jordan Love's really good. But they love to lean on Josh Jacobs. And when I say like run heavy, we're talking about like they had a 39% pass rate against 49ers, 48% against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago, 47% against the Saints. So just like really leaning on the run. The Vikings have a good defense, which obviously is not great for the Packers, and they're good against the run and the pass. So in that sense, it's a bad matchup. But we could really see them pushed here. Obviously, that's what we saw the first time they played. They had to go into like true comeback mode, and we got a lot of pass volume. But, hopefully what I'm hoping this will turn into is like a really kind of back and forth game where both teams are pushing each other. I do think that given the makeup of both teams, playing it from the Vikings side is more interesting because I trust the Vikings to be aggressive and to not need to be pushed all that much to lean into a competitive script. I think Jefferson's a really strong play. I think Addison's a really strong play. I think Darnold is a strong play. Obviously, stacking them makes a lot of sense. And then it's kind of more about how I want to play it with Packers coming back. But Josh Jacobs, I think, is a really good play here. And then the Packers receivers, I think, are all in play. All three guys, assuming Watson's out, I think, are in play. I probably a little less interested in Kraft, but at 3,900, I think he's fine too. So yeah, it would be my favorite play is probably the Vikings, stacking up Vikings with Darnold.
Davis, how about you?
No, I mean I like the Darnold doubles and everything, but the only game that Mr. Love has thrown for over 300 yards this year Minnesota Vikings. Now that was the game he came back from the knee injury. Clearly was awful. Threw a remember that awful pick six he threw? He's like about to Orlovsky out of his own end zone and threw a pick six instead.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen, but this is like a super important game for both teams. The Packers are at 6 straight games with fewer than 30 dropbacks. That's crazy. They're 31st in the NFL in dropback rate. So like that's all feeding into the pricing. But if I told you in the dome, condensed target tree because Watson is out, everyone's very inexpensive, that they get, if I told you Jordan Love gets 38 dropbacks here, like basically every Packers guy becomes as good as, remember the Bears guys last week, Caleb and all those guys, you know, I think we could be in a very similar situation this week. I mean, look, it's totally possible that it's not that you don't want to do that, but that's kind of what I'm leaning. Like, I think that Dubs, Watson, or Dubs, Wicks, Reed, Kraft, like Jordan Love doubles, I think are super strong this week.
I wasn't very interested when I did my write-up, but I think Watson being out just like makes it easier, just because like none of them project that well, like tough to predict, but like just removing one of the rotation pieces from that wide receiver rotation does get a lot more interesting, because like Love on his own is good, and you throw in easier to stack. So I think I'm with you that it's, you know, I think I prefer Darnold overall probably, but I'm with you that Love is pretty interesting now. Pat, do you see the vision?
I do. What I would say is we don't talk a ton about bringbacks, and the Sims, you know, are generally not super bringback heavy.
No, you want bringbacks, and specifically with the Love stuff. Yeah,
specifically with the Love stuff, I think you want bringbacks because the Vikings are scoring. For the Love stuff to really pay off, the Vikings are scoring. The Packers have just time and time again shown us that they are not really going to create their own passing volume. They're going to need to be pushed. They can score, and part of it is that Josh Jacobs can score. Like, if you don't want to do bringbacks, just play Josh Jacobs, you know, and don't stack the Love stuff. But I think with Love stacks, Vikings are scoring, and maybe it's Aaron Jones. You know, it doesn't have to be the passing game on the Vikings side, but I think it would be a spot for bringback.
We got asked who said he's out. No, he's not officially out. He is questionable. I think he's less than 50% likely to play this game. Maybe that's wrong, because it is a game that both teams really need. So if he can play, it seems like he probably will. But I think I'm leaning more towards Watson's going to be out. You guys, sounds like we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be. Jordan Love is like kind of famously gone the other way when he's questionable. You know, like you're sort of surprised when he, especially lower body stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe if it was a wrist injury or something, but this guy's hamstrings are 20% different sized per his own reporting.
But he fixed that this offseason. This offseason, he fixed it, I thought, and he was going to be healthy all year.
I think, like, I just want to really hammer this home. Like, I think my spy team is probably going to be Love, Reed, Wicks, Jefferson. Like, I feel pretty strongly about it.
That's fun, as long as Justin Jefferson scores more than the rest. Well,
Crane, you and I talk about this too, where it's like Jordan Love wants to go out there and like wing it. Like he does. He does. He wants to do, like, you could just tell he kind of has like the restraining bolt on him, where it's like, God, okay, fine, whatever. I'll hand it off to Josh Jacobs again.
The second we see Jordan Love audibling, his ADP needs to go up like 3 rounds. Like,
oh man, 100%, yes. Yeah, I think look, the Minnesota Green Bay has been the shipper 2 years in a row in Best Ball Mania. Jaron Hall, you remember Jaron Hall started this game for the Vikings last year? Got benched at halftime. Nick Mullins came in.
That's right.
It was all the Packers pieces that you needed. But yeah, I just, dude, Jordan Love in the dome. Jordan Love in the dome, man. It's I think it's gonna happen.
I do see what's happening is that because my spy team is probably going to be Tampa Bay quarterback stacked up with maybe a bring back coming back. So we're both just trying to relive Best Ball Mania glory days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also they're good matchups, so like kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, Copy Paste States. I don't know. the quotes from Alfor, the door is open for him to play. So it's kind of like, to me, it's like, we come from the assumption that he's not playing, but like the door is open. He could.
He's been super important.
Yeah.
Like they've restructured their passing game to have the play action, like deep shot to him be kind of so they want him to play. This is not like, there was maybe this thought this offseason, like, Christian Watson, we can't rely on him. Like we'll move on from him. That has not been the way they played the last month.
No, yeah, he's been a priority. So yeah, it is pretty impactful. Yeah, I guess
Do you have a favorite of the receivers? Are you gravitating towards any of the three, assuming Watson's out?
Reed, because I still think Reed's very good. The reason why he's had this terrible fantasy season is they just, 31st in dropback rate, bro. Like they're worse than the Eagles,
Yeah.
Like Jordan Love is closer to Anthony Richardson in dropbacks than he is to Jalen Hurts.
I think I would go because I know ball. I think I would go Dontavian Wicks would be my wide receiver of choice on the Packers.
Okay.
I didn't realize that Davis doesn't know ball.
Neil doesn't know
go
ball.
And read
yeah.
over Dontavian.
Yeah. It's just like I think we probably are doing both, but
that is true.
But Reed like Wicks, a good Wicks game is 2 receptions for 16 yards and 2 touchdowns. A good Jordan Reed game is like 6 for 112 and 2. It's just like they're different that way.
Yeah, true. And maybe a carry for Reed.
Maybe a carry, yeah.
All right. Anything else on this Vikings Packers game? TJ Hawkinson.
Aaron Jones is going to be
Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be really chalky, but still a strong play.
Yep. I have interest in TJ Hawkinson. Davis, you alluded to it earlier. Jordan Addison also being very much in play.
He probably is the falls between the cracks play here, where
could be, yeah.
You do Darnold with Jefferson and Hawkinson. You slip your Dontavian Wicks in there as your bring back, and then you're tilting that every play action pass Jordan Addison is the first read, not Justin Jefferson for some reason. Still don't have that one worked out, but KOC is doing a great job, so I don't want to criticize him too much, but
yeah. Yep. And then the only other game on this slate is the FanDuel only game, Atlanta Falcons at Washington Commanders. Bijan looks pretty interesting on the Falcon side. Michael Penix does not project well at all. I wanted to write up Michael Penix. It's also like this has not been the great matchup that it was early in the year against this Commanders defense. So Bijan, the only player that I noted on the Falcons being playable. The Commanders look awesome. Jaden Reed, 8,500 on FanDuel, averaging 30.3 fantasy points over the past 5 weeks. He's just great. Brian Robinson, 6,900 on FanDuel is not a bad play. Zach Ertz, only 5,000 on FanDuel. And then Terry McLaurin up at 7,900 would be kind of a pay up to be contrarian option. Do you guys have any other notes on the Commanders or the Falcons?
I kind of like Penix more than I just peeked at the projections real quick. I like him a little bit more than that because they were already doing more stuff with him against the Giants than they were with Kirk. But then,
Kyle Pitts. Yeah, come on.
And then the two pick sixes. The Kyle Pitts play. I mean, do you just if you're the Falcons, do you just cut him just to like get the juju out of the building? It's like
probably
it's like
at some point
ancient burial ground thing where it's like
were you taking a shot at Juju Smith-Schuster there, or you just
might as well?
Man, Kyle Pitts, dude, how the mighty! Yeah. I'm gonna have so much Kyle Pitts in best ball next year. He's gonna be like a 15th round pick.
Yeah, dude,
he will,
and I'll definitely draft him. I will definitely draft Kyle Pitts next year. Yeah.
Me too. Then Charlie Warner's going to outsnap him. What if the Falcons take Tyler Warren? That would be a great troll. That would be
I don't know who that is. Is that a tight end?
He's like the new George Kittle.
Okay. Oh, that's fun.
Maybe the new Hawkinson actually is better comp. Yeah, I like Penix London. I was looking at FanDuel. I like that a little bit more than the field.
Okay.
Yeah, Penix was pretty good last week. One game, but off to a good start. And, if we can have like quarterback play that's kind of keeping things on the rails again, that's really, really good for Bijan. So against the Commanders defense, that's a big time run funnel. And probably, we were robbed a little bit of seeing, how much they could have been run on last week with, the Eagles losing Hurts, right? So I think Bijan could smash here. He would be like the addition of him to the slate, I think changes things a little bit. How
Yeah,
expensive
that's
is
a
he
good
on Kindle?
Pretty expensive. I want to say like 89.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 8,900, which for comparison, Brian Robinson is 6,900. So like there's pretty big, as there should be, difference in price.
Right.
All right. I think that does it for the games. So let's talk about some of our favorite stacks, favorite plays under like 5-ish% ownership. So starting with favorite stacks, Baker Mayfield. Sounds like everybody's pretty into.
Yeah, Baker doubles. I like the Payne Durham call. I think the Payne Durham is a good little differentiator, a way to save some salary, not a particularly value full slate. And it's not like Kate Otton's good,
No,
that was never the thesis of Kate Otten.
Kate Otten used to be Payne Durham.
Yeah,
right. He only was just in this role. So yeah, I think it's a fun one. Baker's probably my favorite stack. I think Young though from the other side, like I'm open to that. I like the Darnold stuff too.
I think Flacco is the one that I am the most interested relative to you two. It's like he's just because of the price tag and like just stack him up with Josh Downs. I don't know, doesn't need to do all that much. So I think that's the one that stands out that I particularly like.
Yeah.
Davis, so you talked up AJ Brown. Would you play Pickett with him?
Is he 4K? He's definitely not. He's definitely
no. He's 5,500.
Oh no chance. No, I'd rather I would rather do Aiden O'Connell naked and hope Aiden O'Connell throws one to DJ Turner, one to Michael Mayer, and gets a 1-yard QB sneak.
You wouldn't just playing with Bowers,
or Bowers. Well, I mean, you start getting into if you're playing AJ Brown, like you're already.
Sure. Okay, I gotcha.
He's expensive. It's hard to do a $6,500 tight end with AJ Brown and still play good running backs.
Yeah,
I mean that goes to your Flacco point, Neil.
Yeah,
you do Flacco downs like that unlocks some stuff.
It's cheap.
Yeah. I still had Richardson in my stuff, so I think part of my Flacco lack of enthusiasm is just not having thought about it a lot. But
yeah,
it is. Yeah, I mean the salary relief is really nice.
We sounds like we all like the Vikings Packers stuff to some extent. And you can kind of play both sides of it, I think.
You definitely can, yeah.
I think you definitely can, yeah.
One of that I think is sort of interesting is I think I'm maybe on an island here and I'm not that enthusiastic about it, but Mason Rudolph, just like against the Jaguars, stack him up with Calvin Ridley, hope for the best.
It's I'm just not saying no to anything because like, dude, it's just a terrible slate.
It's a terrible slate. Yeah.
That does feel like what's going to win the Millie Maker actually is Mason Rudolph. And Calvin Ridley, doesn't it?
It does kind of feel like that.
No, but it's like how Michael Penix won the Millie last week with 6 points. It's like this guy played Mason Rudolph and Chigakonkwo. They combined for 13, and he won the Millie Maker.
Turns out that's all we needed. Yeah,
you're right. Chig has to be on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is one of those slates. What about like low owned plays under 5% or so?
I think I'm calling my shot with Kendre Miller. I would call. It just feels like, okay, if Derek Carr was playing and the Saints were like loosely in playoff contention, like they had 7 wins right now and they were in this spot, and let's say Alvin Kamara had 80 yards and a touchdown the last time he played, and they lose to the Packers in this alternate reality, but like they look awful. Isn't Kendre Miller like 57% owned here by all the idiot slappies that play on DraftKings who've been doing nothing but tweeting about how Dennis Allen has been unfair to Kendre Miller for the last 2 years?
Yeah. I mean, he seems like he's just extremely game script dependent based on a 1-game sample size. It was like they used him a lot in the first half. They get down. They're like, nope, you can't do this. Now we're going to Jordan Mims. So I don't hate that. Rashad White would be my version, I think, of Kendre Miller, just from a like He's really low owned in a great matchup. If the coaches give him an opportunity, he should be able to do relatively well here. So I think Rachaad White's sort of interesting to me at low ownership.
I would say Jonathan Taylor, especially if there starts to be like Flacco stuff and people are kind of thinking about the Colts from the passing game side a little bit more.
This is why he's a millionaire and I'm not. I go Kendra Miller and he says maybe the guy who got 40 last week actually is a good play again.
Is he that low owned? I'm trying to find him.
He's like 10%. Yeah.
And I think it drops if
okay.
Yeah. I mean, plus it seems like, enthusiasm. It's easier to tell yourself the story on Saquon, obviously. He's chasing records. I think Jacobs is also, he's in that game environment people are going to want to be a part of. So I could see Taylor just like not being a priority for people. And he falls to like 5% pretty easily. So, yeah. I mean, this dude, even with Flacco, like they're going to be leaning on the run. Like when was Flacco's last game?
Flacco coincided with Taylor's ankle injury. It was like okay. Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson.
That's right. Okay. Well, regardless, I mean they've been very run heavy the last 4 weeks. 47% pass rate, 47, 61, 22. As I mentioned, that's the lowest of the year, but they really fought game script to get there in all 4 of the games. -17, -18, -9, -26 in pass rate over expected the last 4 weeks. I think even with Flacco, we're going to see this team lean on the run. And so, yeah, I think, it's a great running back and a good matchup with the team built around him.
Yeah, I like that. Anything else? Any other players we want to shout out?
I mean, just to reiterate that I don't think that AJ Brown is going to get that owned.
That's true.
I really don't.
I agree. I think he'll be right around that 5% probably.
This might be I don't know. I'm just not going to be that surprised if we get a Gucci headband game. Like, takes 2 crossers, 70 yards to the house. Like Cowboys stink. But, is this in the dome? I can't remember. No, it's not. This is at Lincoln Financial. So whatever. Point is, Gucci headband. He wants to play with Pickett.
Another one of your guys, Jaden Reed, looks like he could be in the 5% range too.
That just feels fake. We Neil and I, we do the expert survey stuff over at RG, and it's like, oh, your favorite plays under 10%. And like I felt like I was cheating putting Jaden Reed under there because Jaden Reed was like the first guy I thought of this week when I started clicking around. So and maybe I'm just an irrevocable slappy, but it just feels so set up for Jaden Reed this week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like that. That's going to come up. I think as other places adjust to Christian Watson being out, I think Reed's ownership comes up. But yeah, if he does stay anywhere close to 5%, that seems like a really strong play. Yeah, I like that call out. All right, I just realized. So my article is up at 4 for 4. So if you wanted to go look at the game by game that I wrote up, you can find that on the 4 for 4 homepage now. And I just posted it into YouTube chat also. How about you two? What else do you guys have going on the rest of the weekend? Where can people find you? What work can they find of yours?
You can check out all of my stuff over at youtube.com/@Davis_Maddock, and all my links and all my stuff. You can click around from there.
Yep, I'm over at legendaryupside.com. I've got the walkthrough coming out. It'll be out tomorrow morning. Day late with all the Christmas festivities and traveling that I'm doing. So, but yeah, check that out there. If you're doing playoff best ball stuff, as I mentioned at the top, I'll be doing a bunch of YouTube content mid to late week next week on that. Check out Davis's stuff on that too. Highly recommend checking out the DraftKings and Underdog Sidekick that we have for playoff best ball. You can check that out at legendaryupside.com/sidekick. Read about that there, but dynamic rankings for playoff best ball, quite helpful as you're putting these teams together.
Yes, it's a must for very helpful for people if you're new to playoff basketball and you don't really know what you're doing. Highly recommend getting the Sidekick to guide you that way. All right, Davis Maddock on the socials, Pat Corain on the socials. I'm Player Q DFS on the socials. we will be back next Friday for the week 18. At least I think we will. I guess we'll have to talk about that. But I think we're going to be back next week for a breakdown of the week 18 slate to do this one final time this year. Appreciate you all hanging out with us throughout the year and today. Thanks, and we will catch you next week.